Before we say the pledge, I have two individuals that are going to come up and they're going to lead us in our pledge. David and Claire, come right on up here. Come right around. We're going to let you come right up on the stage. There you go. Looking good. Go right ahead. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done. You may be seated. Jude? Have a seat.
Thank you.
Now you're going to take the gavel down, and say, I call this meeting to order.
I call this meeting to order.
Now get out of my seat. Well done. Having had this meeting called to order and having taken roll and having a quorum, we will proceed. The first item on the agenda this evening is a presentation by the Boy Scouts. The microphone?
Sure.
It's not karaoke time.
We would like to present this neckerchief and slide to our Mayor Emmerich. Did I pronounce that right?
You did.
From BSA Troop 20, Parkersburg, Vienna. And we would also like to invite you to our 95th anniversary on October 22nd? 26th?
Shake with this hand.
Other hand. Wrong hand.
Thank you very much. How nice is that? It says Boy Scouts of America and it has the Vienna logo on it with the Boy Scout logo there. Very nice. Would the rest of you like to come up and get a picture?
Yeah. Some can get
You
the
do.
back.
Scoot right on in here. That's it. Look, and we'll get your picture and everything. The Scouts are so important, not just locally, but nationally. And we thank you guys for answering the call and learning to serve. But we also thank the troop leaders. That we know that you volunteer, and there's a lot of time, energy, and effort that goes into it. And these kiddos wouldn't be able to do what they're doing if it wasn't for your dedication. So we thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. The minutes from the regular council meeting on September 25th, 2025 have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? None, then the minutes will stand as posted. Having no unfinished business, is it this one? Is it? Oh, it is. I was gonna skip you. The report of the treasurer.
I reviewed the reconciliations of funds dated October 6, 2025, and the short budget report at a high level, compared it to the previous month. The accounts are in order, and the city of Vienna can pay its bills.
Are there any questions in regard to the treasurer's report? If not, let it stand so submitted. Now, moving past unfinished business, on to new business. The first item on the agenda this evening is a discussion to identify the possible wake zone area along the Ohio River. To open this up, this is a discussion point because as we make progress and we'll eventually have a completed kayak launch located at 12th Street, there is, or was obviously and still is concern that one of the main points of this is that we have made this kayak launch ADA compliant. And there is a large concern about the safety factor if individuals are putting kayak or small craft into the water, that if there was not a no wake zone, that could potentially become very dangerous for those individuals, both getting in and out and being on the water itself. So there has been discussion and some energy put into what it takes to actually get any area designated into a no wake zone area along the Ohio River. That project has been headed up by Jack Mathers, who is here with us this evening. So at this point, we'll just open this up for discussion. We're not making any decisions or any recommendations this evening, simply just having the discussion so that all of council can be aware of what the intent would be through that, knowing that it is not council's decision at the end of the day whether or not that is actually turned into a no wake area. That goes on to the Corps of Engineers and actually takes some legislation, I believe, to make that happen from Charleston. So at this time, I'll open it up for discussion amongst any of the council members.
I'll start. I think that the east side of the island, that whole area, from to the shore.
Can you talk into your microphone?
Yeah, I think the east side of the island, the entire length of it, should be a no wake zone. I've been down there and I've watched speedboats and jet skis and multiple jet skis go through the time. I mean, as fast as possibly could, and I would too if I was riding it, But it is dangerous, and inexperienced kayakers or people that have slow reflexes is not going to be a good situation. What I don't know about is, the entire length of Vienna, because, it'll be the kayak launch at Spencer's Landing. What we can do as far as the distance out, along the shore for the entirety of the length of Vienna, because, that is a kayak trail. The Fish and Wildlife Service have that trail that runs from way up to wherever it ends. So, I think that kayaks need a safe place, a safe harbor, so to speak, to know that, you're going to have barges going down through there. You're going to have some wake. You're going to have some wake regardless. But I think, keeping it some kind of a distance away from the shore would be safer than not having that. And I don't even know if we can do that or not. I don't know what's possible. So, but that's my concern and my thoughts about it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Sure.
So in no wake zone, I've been on the Ohio River forever, for my life. We see no wake zones up at Little Hocking, you see them in Muskingum, you see them in different places. I don't even go to those places. The lee side of New Island is often where, for example, when I'm teaching my grandchildren how to ski, okay? In the channel, you've got the barge traffic anytime that you have any kind of, wind, which always is, west to east, creates that chop. Much more difficult to do water sports and things like that. Same thing, with tubing. Let's turn to the safety of the kayak launch. with respect to the kayak launch, ADA compliant, that's fine. And I think that we certainly, first of all, I would think would start with the least restrictive approach that would not require legislation or the Corps involvement, where I think we could just put up a notification, and of course it's the parent by the dock being there, caution kayak launch. And I know just the kind of the rules of the river, the courtesy and so forth, that you do. For example, if you are pulling a skier down inside New Orleans, all right, and there is somebody putting in a kayak. First of all, kayakers have a responsibility for themselves to pay attention to traffic patterns and so forth, and to launch safely. But also boaters, and is generally true, that you always avoid, you slow down, even if you've got a skier or you're towing somebody. You can reduce speed, avoid. So I would very much be opposed to trying to particularly start out the wake zone. We don't know how much participation is going to be in this launch, but to permanently restrict the ability to use that part of the waterway, which is very desirable for a lot of reasons, for boaters being able to operate at a speed sufficient to conduct water sports, is very important. So I think we very much so should start with a lesser restrictive approach, put up, the notice, the warning, say kayak launch, reduce speed, watch out, whatever it might be. See what kind of participation we get. As I said, you cannot, for example, also, unless you were born before January 1st, 1986, you have to have a boater's license now to operate boat, jet ski, and so forth. That requires the training, the education in order how to operate safely, how to conduct yourselves around, and also, I see, this time of year right now, we constantly have the crew teams in their sculls on the river, right? They're operating within the barge traffic. And I see, the sculls are operating at the same time the bass boaters are on fishing tournaments, right? And they behave themselves. Everybody looks out for each other. And so I respect the fact that we need to pay attention, make the opportunity for kayak launch and operating the kayak. You got to go somewhere, right? To have that opportunity, but that all has to coexist. I think it would be unfair to impinge on everybody else's right to enjoy the river, for that purpose, especially when I don't know at all that it even is necessary. I think that, you start with the warnings, see how things are. If there's some reason that people are, that we need to ratchet it up, then we take that consideration then. So that's my opinion about all of this.
Anyone else?
Well, I'll have to confess that I'm older than Jim, and I've been water skiing.
I'm shocked.
I've been water skiing on the Ohio River and in these areas since 1975, so that makes 50 years. Jim's just barely 50 years old. And there are...
You're doing good till you start lying there.
there are some areas on the Little Kanawha where they try to, keep things down a little bit. And I agree 100% with Jim that the boaters and the kayakers have to be responsible for themselves. You go telling people to slow down a boat, you just create higher wakes. The highest wake you're going to have is, the only way you can have no wake is to idle. And we can't make people idle up and down the Ohio River. And the area where behind Neal Island and behind Blennerhassett Island are the best places for young kids to learn how to water ski on weekends. Now during the week, it's not a problem for anybody because there aren't that many recreational boats out there. So if people want to kayak during the week, they have to use the sense and use reasonable times. You can't plan to go out there on a weekend when everybody's water skiing, no matter where you are, and the barges create a larger wake than most any boat, and it's not like you can create a no wake zone and keep barges from going through. They don't go behind Neal Island. So I'm just saying, as somebody that's actually been on the river for 50 years and seen kayaking, seen swimming, seen canoeing, the crew boat racing and all that, it's, you can't regulate common sense. Now, if people are going by and create an excessive wake and overturn a kayak and somebody gets injured, they can come to me or some other lawyer because that's negligence on the part of the boat operator. I mean, if they create that kind of problem, there's a liability of the boater to the kayaker. But for us to say, well, no, everybody just has to have no wakes, it's not doable, and it's not fair, and it just doesn't make sense to anybody that spends a lot of time on it. So, that's my opinion. Everybody might disagree with me, but that's my opinion.
And we all have one. That's the great thing about them.
I don't have much to add as far as the, I mean, I had a jet ski for a while, and yeah, right here behind Neal Island is where we played all the time because you don't have the barge traffic. And I can assure you I was making some wake with the jet ski. Just the only thing I can really add to this, I feel, is you got about 7,500 feet, about mile and a quarter or so from end of the island to end of the island. And I don't necessarily think having that entire area as a no-wake zone, that seems a little excessive if I was going to weigh in, my opinion. I agree. I did see a lot of people out there with water skiing and stuff, and I think it's a great place to do it, as they both said. So 7,500 feet seems excessive. If we wanted to make a no-wake zone right there around the launch area, you know, that may be reasonable. So anyways, that's all I got.
One other thing to note about, I'm sorry, but just I want to interject. So already the law is that you are not to generate wake within 100 feet of docks or launch. Now people violate that, sure. I got my docks are right there in the channel. People will cruise by and they violate that, but there's already protection there. And the problem with trying to create a partial no-wake zone, how do you do that? Because you can't, then you have, what do? You just stop and drop your skier. You can't continue through. You know, and it's wide enough there. Again, you could stay to the west side of the, you know, up against the island as you take somebody through, especially if you see kayak traffic. And it's not going to impact somebody's ability to launch or to, you know, paddle kayak. I mean, it's manageable. So, but that 100-foot rule exists.
If I can pile on that, when you're going fast enough to ski, you don't create that much of a wake anyway. But somebody's going to say, well, you're creating a wake. The lowest wake is at ski speed. So it just doesn't fit with the reality of sports on the river. And as to the possible injury of people who have disabilities, they're the same as all of us. We have to watch when we're putting in a kayak. You look out there and see if anything's coming before you do it. You don't, if you see a barge, you don't sit there and try to launch in the wake. You see a long way down the river if somebody's coming with a wake. So it's not a disabilities issue.
Anyone else? Henry?
Yeah, for those of you that may know, not know, you know, when SeaWorld opened up, Harry was one of the skiers. Oh, I said whenever SeaWorld opened up, you know, Harry was one of the skiers, and people didn't know that on Lake Erie. But no, from water skiing and snow skiing, since I was a kid. And snow skiing was just a big pain in the neck when snowboarding came out, because they were everywhere. They were out of control. And you were saying you'd like to use those snowboarders as pothole fillers, you know, when you were on skis. But as they learned and as the sport grew, everybody's watching out for everybody now. I mean, so whether you're skiing up at Seven Springs or Canaan or Snowshoe, it's okay. I mean, everyone, same with on the boats. If you're out there fishing, you see the boats coming by, they'll slow down or they'll wave or whatever. I mean, every now and then somebody's going to be crazy. You yell, they're going to stop or quit clowning around. So a lot of people that have boats respect the water. They treat it like a car. I would agree with Jim that initially let it ride and see what happens, and if there's a lot of issues or complaints, address it then.
And I will confess, it was the Cypress Garden skiers who came up here to ski on City Park Pond that taught me how to barefoot water ski.
Tony, mental image right there.
Okay, so, Jim, you mentioned earlier about, putting up warning signs, which we don't have to go through Army Corps of Engineers or anything like that, no law. Can that be enforceable from a legal standpoint? If someone comes too close to the dock, can the state police stop them?
Yeah, but you can sue them if they cause an injury.
The DNR has jurisdiction, okay? And they're on the river. And in fact, I've had my kids get tickets from the DNR because on 2 jet skis right in front of, inside Neal Island, in front of Buzzy's River lot, they both kind of fully accelerated and went like this, and that's against the same thing.
Your kids did that?
That was friends of my kids, I'm sorry, I misspoke. But, you know,
Let him rephrase that.
Right. You know, so the fact is, yes, there doesn't need to be a warning sign or anything. If somebody is within 100 feet of the dock, you just have to read the stat. Remember, I can't tell you exactly what it says, but basically, you know, if you're at operating speed, you need to be 100 feet away. That's the law as it exists right now on the river. And so that would apply to the kayak launch, right? And 100 feet is going to get you pretty well out from the dock. But I think that, yeah, you can put, you know, I would suggest that, you know, a couple of buoys with the warning signs, letting people know, you know, you can say ADA kayak launch or whatever. But yeah, it's the same thing as Henry said, you know, you adjust, you acclimate, the courtesy is along the river. There's, you know, I mean, the tradition on the river, and still not as much maybe as it was 20 years ago, you always wave. You know, whenever you pass somebody on a boat, everybody waves at each other, okay? Every time you pass somebody on a boat. And that's just kind of the respect and courtesy that exists on the river. We need to kind of, especially to begin, rely on that common sense courtesy and the fact that we already do have, you know, legal protections in place that people need to stay 100 feet off the dock. And if you see that repeatedly happening, then you just alert the DNR. And it's just like calling our local police officer and saying, hey, somebody's, you know, speeding through my neighborhood. These guys keep, breaking that statute. So
Take it very seriously.
they
River law enforcement.
They do, actually.
Very, very
you know, we got,
serious.
we know, I know the sound of their boat. And it's like, it's like, we say it's 5-0. That's what we call it. When it says 5-0, you know. And so there
I can hear it coming, everybody act natural.
It is about 500 foot wide there, just measuring, so.
Rob, did you have anything else?
No, that's all I have.
Is there any other discussion? Like I said, it was just a discussion point. We're obviously not making any decisions or making any recommendations. You know, that's this point, we just, or I felt that it was important to get the feel of council and give everybody an opportunity to weigh in with their opinions, as Harry so gently noted that we all have. If there's no other discussion, we'll move on to the second item on our agenda this evening, and that is the first reading of an ordinance prohibiting the operation of electronic bicycles and motorized scooters by individuals 15 years of age or younger with exceptions. Mr. Skogstad.
I'm only going to read it by title unless council wants me to read the entire thing. And this is an ordinance prohibiting the operation of electric bicycles and motorized scooters by persons 15 years of age or younger with exceptions. And for you folks, just for the public, because I know council and sure has gone over this. First section just sets up a set of definitions. The definitions come essentially from state code as far as electric bicycles and the distinction between class 1, 2, and 3. Throttles, the definition that was generated for motorized scooters basically is everything that isn't an autocycle, motorcycle, electric bicycle, moped, or motor-driven cycle under West Virginia code. The prohibition generally is any motorized scooter as defined would be prohibited by persons 15 years of age or younger from being driven on city streets, sidewalks, city property and so forth, with the exception of Class 1 and Class 2 e-bikes, which would have the same, would be able to be ridden in the same places as regular bicycles. We have a supervised operation exception. The idea here isn't to keep kids from going outside, it's just to make sure that they're supervised. So as long as a parent is supervising them and making sure that the children are operating these vehicles consistent with our bicycle statute and the state code with respect to bicycles, that they're allowed to operate them. We've made exceptions for the parade. We've made exceptions for the government, for the local government. I can't imagine that we're going to be delivering things on scooters, but you never know what happens. We had a water issue and we have had a direct issue in the last 20 years. I added a definition for mobility devices, incorporating our definition under the park ordinance for other power-driven mobility devices, including electric personal assisted mobility devices, showing that this article doesn't apply to them. Sets out a requirement for safety equipment, sets out for penalties for both the juveniles, which would be heard through municipal court, and then sets out a section for parental responsibility. If the parents aren't properly supervising their children, allowing their children to ride these vehicles, then they can be cited the same as the child who is not doing what they're supposed to do.
Did you touch base on the exception under parental supervision?
Briefly, it says this section, meaning the prohibition, doesn't apply to the operation of a motorized scooter or electric bicycle by a person 15 years of age or under when the minor is under the direct physical supervision of a parent or legal guardian who is 18 years of age or older. Such supervision occurs within line of sight and hearing distance of the minor. The supervising adult shall assume full responsibility for ensuring the minor's compliance with all safety equipment requirements, including the helmet requirements set forth in West Virginia Code 17C11A1, EDSEC, Vienna Municipal Code Articles 373, and any violation thereof shall constitute a violation of this municipal code by the parent or legal guardian, and such operation doesn't occur on any street with a posted speed limit greater than 25 miles an hour. So, again, the intent of that is just to make sure that if you're out watching your kids play on these things, that's fine, as long as they're doing it safely and you're actually paying attention. And obviously, they're not going to be allowed to ride them down Grand Central Avenue.
That has to be our own number.
I don't need my car warranty.
That's it.
But that's essentially it.
Having heard Mr. Skogstad's description and interpretation of the ordinance before you, do I have a motion to accept on first reading this ordinance? I have a first.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Open for discussion. Eric?
Russ, did you write that?
I did.
That is very good. I compliment you, and you probably will have saved the life of some kid in this town.
Well, I don't know. Thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it. Actually, this was written at the request of the mayor, but I've noticed driving around.
Oh, man, just stop. You don't have to do that.
But riding around Parkersburg, Indiana, I've noticed that we see a lot of these kids out on these little Coleman bikes that you get down at Rural King. And I drive a big old F-150, and the last thing I want to do is to hurt somebody's kid. So I think this is a well-received, well-suggested ordinance.
Henry?
Yeah, going through, they're more popular now than ever. And I have personally stopped and told these kids, they have no helmet. They're wearing Crocs or flip-flops. And I have asked them if they've looked online of injuries that happen when you don't wear the boots. I said, you don't want to lose your foot. And 2 days later, they're doing it again. They blow through stop signs, they do all that type of stuff. So it's amazing. I mean, this is something that I don't think these kids realize the hazard that comes with it. It's a neat toy, but there's a huge hazard.
Absolutely.
I don't think you realize how fast 20 miles an hour is.
Oh, boy. What I was going to ask of the council members is, the hardest part for this is, for law enforcement purposes, is finding a definition that adequately covers these devices. And if you guys have any suggestions, I mean, because the issue we had for years was with the motorized bicycles. Were they a moped? Were they a motorized bicycle? Where do they fall? Do they have a 1 horsepower engine? Do they have a 50 cc engine? If you guys look at the definition, and we don't have to do it tonight, obviously, but between now and the next with the motorized scooters, and I've asked Chief Powell to look at it, and he's looked at it. If you guys have any suggestions to make this, I guess, more obvious to a normal person to read this so that they can, it can be more easily enforced, I certainly would welcome it. I did the best that I can, but I'm only one brain, so.
Well, when you're talking enforcing, that's gonna be tough, because there's a golf cart ordinance, and people won't follow that either.
Well, we have an ordinance. I can't,
Microphone.
I can't speak as to how it's enforced, but we have an ordinance.
I can't unplug it, or I would.
That's all right.
They want some help.
Evidently.
As a kid with an electric.
Yeah. Dude, bruh.
So what brought this, you know, I've seen kids running around the neighborhood, and I too have stopped. Kids saying, look, you have stop sign, because I watched as kids came down 3rd Avenue, and they blew through 3 stop signs coming towards me. Didn't even stop. I mean, you could just tell they were just kicking down the avenue. But what really brought it to the forefront for me was I was on Rosemar Road, and I passed a kid that I know could not have been more than 9 or 10 on a Coleman gas-powered motorcycle. You're one of those little bit newer ones, had a helmet on, but was cooking down Rosemar Road. And not even on the side, was straight down the lane. And it was at that moment that I knew that we needed to take some type of action, and to do that, to be able to regulate this and to be able to have something to enforce it, because it's for the safety of our kids, and the safety of the adults as well. Eric?
Yes, I didn't hear I missed the fine or the penalty. Is it enough to get the attention of any parent?
Parents get hit too.
For the first offense, it's $25 to $100 fine. Second offense, subsequent offenses is $50 to $250.
I would recommend the fine be a lot higher for the first and the second offense. They aren't gonna care about $25.
Are you making a motion for an amendment?
Well, if people agree, I don't wanna.
Well, if you make a motion, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. I'll make the motion. I just feel that they're gonna ignore it at those fines.
So you have a motion to amend the penalty section for first offense
And second
offense. First offense would be what? I have $25 to $100.
I'd say a minimum of 50 and up to 250.
Okay.
And then the second offense, 250 to 500.
Okay.
It's gotta be enough that when they read about it, they go, I don't wanna have to pay that. And I don't, if somebody thinks it should be lower or higher or whatever,
So the motion on the floor is to amend the penalty section of the ordinance for first offense from $50 to $250, and for second offense to $250 to $500. Is that motion to amend? Is there a second? I'm sorry.
You were doing really good. We had a motion for an amendment, we had a second. Any discussion? This is on the amendment.
Just for clarification, is this saying no child 15 and under is allowed to operate any motorbike, moped, anything on city streets? Is that the way I'm reading this?
The prohibition is if you're 15 or under, you cannot ride, operate, or otherwise use an autocycle, motorized scooter as defined herein, moped, motorcycle, motor-driven cycle, or electric bicycle for transportation for recreational purposes on a street, alley, sidewalk, parking lot, or other property owned, leased, or controlled by the city of Vienna, any of its boards, authorities, or commissions except as set out below. And the exceptions are for Class 1 and Class 2 electric bicycles, which are also defined in the ordinance.
And this applies to unsupervised.
Yes, the unsupervised.
Okay, so, and I'm just running down this, so I'm not weighing in. I just, whenever I was this age, I mean, elementary, whenever my parents started letting me, kind of get out and around.
5 years ago.
Yeah. Just a couple of years ago, that's right. I was on my bicycle, and I was from 60th Street down to, Hills parking lot and everywhere in between on a bicycle, no motorbike. And we still allow that in the city.
Yes.
As far as this is just for motorized.
That's correct. And electric bicycles, because when we were kids, when I was a kid, I don't ever remember seeing an electric bicycle. I saw a couple of Italian guys riding around on Vespas. It's gonna be a moped or something.
But anything that would qualify under this, they would basically have to be street legal.
Yeah, well, no, anything that has.
Should we address?
Sorry, fine.
Let's first take action on the recommendation to amend the fine. Then we'll have other discussion in regards to.
Well, I guess I'm just trying to really understand what the law is prohibiting completely before I have the ability to vote on the fine or not.
So kids can't drive motor vehicles without a license, right? So unless you have, nobody can drive a motor vehicle without a license. Kids can't, so if you have a driver's license, you have to be 16 to have a driver's license, right? You have a permit, but you're not gonna see two people loaded up on a one-person scooter. And I'm not joking.
I've seen two
Well,
kids on a scooter.
But it's not designed for that, and so the regulation prohibits that. This isn't gonna affect kids on bicycles. They're still gonna be allowed to ride the same places that they're allowed to ride now, and they're still gonna be prohibited from riding, which I think in Vienna is the commercial district. They're not allowed to ride on sidewalks. And I think if you're allowed to ride in residential neighborhoods, if you're under 15, you still have to have helmets and so forth. It's not gonna affect the bicycle ordinance. This has specific definitions for the electric bicycles, which are the pedal-assisted ones, and the ones that have that are capable of being propelled with a throttle, but can only go up to 20 miles an hour. You're not allowed to ride a Class 3 motorcycle or electric bicycle because the Class 3 is defined essentially by speed. They're capable of speeds of up to 28 miles an hour, and you're not allowed to ride on those if you're a kid or under 16 anyway. So it's not going to affect where kids can ride bikes. They would still be able to ride these e-bikes, the Class 1 and Class 2, in the same places that they'd be able to ride regular bicycles with the same requirements that they wear helmets. What this is trying to regulate is the kids that we're seeing on the motorized scooters, those little razors, the ones that have little motors on them that you sit on, the ones that have self-propelled skateboards, that kind of stuff, because I put in here whether you have handlebars or not. Just the things like that. We already have a prohibition in our golf cart ordinance for go-karts, so you can't ride those in the street. We have a regulation for golf carts in general. This tries to cover everything else that we're seeing that is being manufactured that these kids are riding on in the street. So if they're under 50, if they're 15 or under, they're not going to be able to ride in the streets, on the sidewalks, unless they're e-bikes, Class 1 and Class 2. And am I answering your question?
Yeah, I'm just processing all this. So, and without parent supervision.
Without parent supervision, right? If you've got your 6-year-old out front of your house and you've got grandma got him a little electric razor or scooter or whatever for Christmas. If you go out and watch your kids, they can go out and play with it, under your supervision, and they're not barred. They can play on the sidewalk or what have you in front of the house. And I suppose if it's on a play street, they could go out and play on a play street. But they just can't. They have to be within your sight and sound. It can't be, well, I was watching them from the kitchen while I was working on lunch. So you have to be out there watching the kids.
And I think I'm tracking now. And let me just give for instance, my 8-year-old, I'd say, hey, you go to Aunt T's house. He hops on a motor scooter that top speed is 8 miles an hour. He rolls down 13th Avenue, turns down 16th, crosses, across 8th Avenue, heads up 19th Street Hill, goes back across 13th Avenue down to Antie's. Is that illegal now?
That would be illegal, because if it's motorized, you're talking about
Yeah,
motorized,
yeah.
he's not gonna be able to do that.
Okay.
So you're gonna have to find another way to get into Auntie's house.
It's called the bicycle.
Killing me.
Called a bicycle, my friend. We all had it.
They don't like a helmet.
Yeah, and I agree. I've seen some kids whizzing around, and I actually witnessed, well, I didn't witness, but one of the kids that lives on my street got hit by a car. I mean, she was lucky, nothing worse happened other than a broken arm. So I do agree there should be some restrictions, but man, completely eliminating it.
Well, they can still ride bikes. It's just, here's the issue for me, just as what I was thinking of, is these things are capable of much higher speeds than what kids are capable of pedaling a bike under their own power, right? I think the only time I was able to get a bike over 20 miles an hour when I was a kid was coming down Weaver Hill, which isn't around here, I'm sorry, but was coming down Weaver Hill and just, hold my feet out basically and let the pedals go. And, but, so the part of it is the speed with these things. The other part is these cone, like the mini bikes that, and I don't mean to pick on the mini bikes, but they're the ones that I see every time I walk into Sportsman's Warehouse, is these mini bikes are low. And even with cars being low, you can have a kid come down the street at 20 miles an hour, which is faster than some of the cars are going through these intersections, and you can't see them until they get to the intersection. And so now you have a kid who doesn't know any better, because I don't care what anybody says, kids don't know anything. And then you have a kid that pops out of a line of parked cars on the street. They pop out into the intersection. They don't know what a stop. I mean, they know what a stop sign is, but they don't really have any sense to pay attention to it. And then, pound, they get blasted the intersection, which we have had kids get hit, and we've had kids across the country that are getting hit on these things. So you have a driver that isn't able to see them until the last minute. I suppose the other solution could be that you could restrict the speed through all the side streets on the city to like 15 miles an hour or something. But realistically, when I look at it, we're just trying to keep these kids we're trying to allow the kids that are old enough and big enough and have enough sense to be able to still do what they do. But the kids that are smaller, that don't know any better, from keeping them from getting hit, rolling out into an intersection or popping out from behind a group of parked cars or something like that. And I drive a big truck, and I'm up above that stuff, and I still can't see kids that are coming from, down a side street or what have you. And I'm not that special, so I imagine other people are having the same issue.
And I do agree with everything that you're saying, and I think it's a huge safety concern. We don't need kids cruising around these things at 20 miles an hour on these back roads, flying through stop signs. But I also say there's scooters out there that their top speed's 7 miles an hour. I mean, they can't go. They literally can't go any faster than 7 miles an hour. All of my nieces and nephews had them, and they'd go in between each other's houses. I mean, the battery would literally last long enough to get to one house, and then you got to charge it up, and then you got to plug it in, and you have to sit there and play video games for a while, and then you have enough to charge to head back to the house. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know how you rewrite it or nothing, but
So let's deal with the amendment on the money piece. Then if you want to make an amendment on the device restrictions, then we'll deal with that. So I have a motion and a second to increase the fees or the fines.
First offense, 50 from not less than 50, not more than $250. For second offense, not less than $250, not more than $500.
so it's hard to really vote on something. I mean, I guess if we're gonna,
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the amendment signify by raising your right hand. The amendment passes 6-1.
Any opposed?
You oppose or abstain?
Yeah, I'll oppose. I probably would be for it if I knew what I was voting for.
Well, let me go address hopefully I can address the question that you raised.
Now we can have more discussion on it.
And I'm not advocating one way or the other for this. This is up for council. I'm just trying to write an ordinance that you guys can deal with. But so looking at it pragmatically, I mean, you make a very good point that some of the scooters are not capable of speeds in excess of 7 or 10 miles an hour. And some of these devices aren't capable of going more than 300, 400, 500 yards on a charge. Now, realistically, I understand that, and that might be something to consider as making exceptions to allow certain ones to ride on sidewalks. But the issue that you end up having is, if you're not careful in how you do it, is you'll have an officer like Mr. Radewall here who is charged with enforcing this. And so he's going to have to, on the fly, determine whether or not this device meets the requirements. You're asking officers to have a complete knowledge of the intricacies, speed limits, possibly distance, capabilities of devices whenever they see them on site. And so it's the issue that I've run into over the years with officers is, like I said, there were distinctions in the law between when you have to have I can't remember what it is, Class C, Class F, but you have to have a motorcycle endorsement to ride certain types of motorcycles or motor-driven cycles. And honestly, I can't remember. I try to stay off of motorcycles. I look like the Haystack Twins riding one. It's kind of ridiculous. But so the officers in the past, where you have some of these smaller things, the mopeds that have certain sized engines, officers, when they're writing a citation to determine to see whether a person has a motorcycle endorsement, one of the defenses is, well, this is less than a 50cc engine, I don't have to have a motorcycle endorsement. Now, realistically, what they run into is guys don't have licenses, and they're not supposed to be driving them anyway. But to cite somebody for driving without motorcycle endorsement, they have to have knowledge of these border vehicles. You know, does it have I think it's a 1.5 brake horsepower engine and above, then you have to have a motorcycle endorsement. If it has a 50cc sized engine or above, you have to have a class motorcycle endorsement. So one of the issues we ran into in the past has been that, is the officers are required before they make the citation whether or not a person has a motorcycle endorsement. You would be asking essentially the same thing here, is your officers would have to take a crash course in everything that comes out that everybody's riding, which I think is not the intent of this. The intent of this is to keep kids from riding these things in the streets and getting hit with cars, and trying to enforce it in a way that is meaningful and pragmatic.
Yeah, and I agree. I tend to, I drive around town just as much as anybody else does, and I see the ones that are whizzing down Grand Central with 2 kids on it, going 20, 25 miles an hour or whatever, just thinking, my God, I hope those kids don't crash. But I also see the, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old kids that are on the little, $80 scooters from Walmart or whatever, doing, 5 miles an hour, just having the time of their life. How do you write a law? How do you write a city ordinance that says, you're allowed to cruise on a low-speed scooter, but not on a high-speed bike? I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how to word that, but I know that officers are trained to spot speeders. They don't always necessarily have their radar pointed right at them when they pull somebody over. And I would think that they would have the capability of recognizing, oh, that kid's clearly under 15 and he's got to be doing at least 20 miles an hour. I want to stop him. How do you write an ordinance that says that? I don't have a clue. But I just hate the idea of, my kids not being able to cruise over 3 streets on a 7-mile-an-hour moped without getting a fine for $150 or whatever we just agreed to, $500 or something. Yeah. That's my only thing. I think it's a great, let me just clarify. I do think we need something because it scares me to death when I see these kids flying around here. But I think there's got to be an exception that allows for these little 5-mile-an-hour scooters. I mean, these little toys that kids are out playing on. I mean, we can't just draw hard lines and say all motorized vehicles are not allowed. I think there's got to be a way to clarify this a little better.
So for me, I've got kiddos that this will affect. But for me, it's the difference between supervised and unsupervised. If my kids are in front of the house, riding their little, electric scooters or things, that's completely different than me saying, hey, go down to the U-Bolt, ride it down to the U-Bolt through where you have several intersections, you have several roads of busy traffic. There's a huge difference between that. Or if I'm with my kiddo, riding down to the Dollar General, wherever it may be, the key for me is supervised and unsupervised. You're not taking away the ability for the kids to ride them. You're restricting it to the parental supervision to ensure that these kids aren't. Because look, I got boys, and I know my boys will press their luck at any given time, even when they're told not to. And that's an issue when they're unsupervised. Harry, were you going to say something else?
I was just going to comment that if it's in the 5-mile-an-hour range, they can do it without a motor, and that will cause them to think before they take the next stride. Whereas if it's motorized, they just go. So I agree 100%. It has to be. We have to make it applicable to all motorized, regardless of the amount of the power.
Is there any other discussion?
Yeah. There is. I don't know. I'm just going to wait.
This is also just the first reading.
I know. And if it passes first reading and then we come to second reading, are we still able to make amendments?
Yeah. As long as the amendments aren't material amendments, and I think if you're asking, I'm going to try to guess what you're going to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Can I modify the definition or add a definition for these slower speed ones? I don't think that would be so material as to require a third reading.
Well, and I would say, obviously I don't have anything prepared or anything like that. But there's certain manufacturers out there that I can look at. I'm sure that if you read on the box, top speed 7 miles an hour, I don't know what that is. But I do intend, assuming this passes today, to have a motion. I'm going to do some research for the following reading to amend that says somewhere along the lines to exclude or not, include in the prohibition scooters that have a speed less than, manufactured speed of less than 7 or whatever it is, the smaller speed things.
And that's fine, and I'll help you write however you need it written. I just want to make sure that it's clear that whatever definition change that you make to the definitions or add or what have you, you have to remember that you're asking your police officers to be able to enforce it, and they're not always going to have the benefit of, if you do it by brand, we bought brand X scooter, well, brand Y makes a scooter, and you're going to require, makes a different scooter that has, the same speed. You're going to require your officer to have, you have to be mindful that you're not requiring your officers to have a thorough and in-depth knowledge of every type of scooter that's manufactured.
And getting back to the 50-year rule, since I was starting a prosecutor's office in 1975, and Russ is in there now, he's exactly right. We can't fine-tune it like that and have it enforceable.
I'm looking at these scooters online right now, and I'm going to have to stick with Tony a little bit on this. I'm seeing $79 scooters from Walmart that'll go 9 miles an hour. These kids, I understand that, but what the hell's the difference between that and a bike carrier? The, you think kids think you're gonna distinguish that? So I'm with Tony on this. I think that, with all due respect to our officers, they have to be able to exercise judgment. People are not even aware. How are you going to make people, because some of these scooters, because you go to a city, you go to New York, you go, wherever, and I mean, people are on these scooters, and that's their commuter tool, and they're going, I don't know, but I'll hazard to say 25, 30 miles an hour on those scooters, right? And they're going, on city, whatever. Anybody? Huh? That's not the point. The point is this, that there is a power limit. We're making it a distinction with respect to the electric bicycles.
Well, yes.
Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, right? And you're saying Class 1 and Class 2 can be ridden the same way a bicycle can by somebody under 15 years old, correct?
15 or under, yes.
Okay.
In the same places that
in the same places, okay. So I believe that enforceability is always one thing, just like Henry says with respect to the golf carts. And but to say that Grandma buys you a scooter that's going to go 9 miles an hour, and you're going to get a now you've doubled the fee. You're going to give them a $250 fine for riding a scooter at 9 miles an hour when you're 8 years old. I'm just not down with that either. I'm with Tony. Now I think that we are smart enough to draw a distinction if we say, because it's clear, this is about safety, and as far as somebody being able to ride into an intersection at 9 miles an hour on a scooter versus doing the same thing on a bicycle, and I don't care what you say, you come down at Glenbrook on a bicycle, you let it rip, you're doing 35 miles an hour, okay, with your legs kicked out like you said.
So to my understanding, Tony is going to take the time between this reading and the next reading to do the research and to work with Mr. Skogstad on what his recommendation of amendment would be to address that matter.
And I'd also like to hear from Chief Powell as well and get his opinion.
Chief Powell has read this and concurs with this. We can invite him here to next council meeting, but as far as our discussion,
as far as being able to identify.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
I get it.
Like I said, if you guys want, help me out here. If you guys want to modify the definition, then we can do that through the form of amendment. And I'm trying to help you all. I'm not advocating for one thing or the other. I'm just pointing out, I want to make something that, if we're going to pass it, that's readily enforceable by law enforcement. And I'm simply highlighting the issues that we've had similarly on with motorcycles and mopeds and what have you. If you recall, a few years ago, we had a lot of those being operated in Vienna and Parkersburg by people that didn't even have driver's licenses. But anyway, I want to work with you on how we can do it, and if we can do it in a way that is easily enforceable.
Henry?
What's your opinion?
I don't want to answer this in an official capacity.
I think it would be good for it to be kind of simple so we know what we're looking for. But also, those things can be modified to go faster and whatnot, so that is another thing to look at. So I do think it would be good. Now, I think we should be able to understand something going 9 miles per hour compared to 20. I think it just needs worded correctly and clearly. So.
Rob, did you have something?
Yeah, just 2 comments. I'm all for simplification. Makes it easier for the officers. But I'm a little bit perplexed that you have scooters can go 20 miles an hour, because my experience with scooters, since they're small wheels, that front wheel when you're steering, it's very difficult. So, and it's probably my ignorance I'm showing, but do we have actual scooters that's in small wheels can go over 20 miles an hour?
I don't want to confuse anything, and I'm sorry that I have. The definition as far as speed is with Class 1 and Class 2 bicycles. Those are based on the definitions promulgated by West Virginia State Code. They have Class 1, Class 2, Class 3. Class 1 are pedal assist bikes. Those are the ones that you buy that they only generate power when you're pedaling. Class 2 are the ones that have an independent throttle, so you don't have to pedal, you just push the throttle. Both of those have speeds capped at 20 miles per hour to qualify as Class 1 and Class 2. Class 3 is any bicycle that provides a system when the rider is pedaling and reaches a speed of 28 miles per hour. And those are the definitions of the bicycle. By default, or the e-bike, by default, you would fall back to like the moped definition for vehicles that are going in excess of that. But like I said, I pulled the definitions from state code. As far as scooters, it would be a blanket ban regardless of top or low speed on sidewalks, streets, and any sidewalks and streets. And then unless they're being supervised, and then the supervision they can still only be ridden on streets and what have you when there's direct parental supervision. So I'm sorry if I conflated speed in here with the scooters and the razors and the what have you, all the various other things. Because that's really just for the bikes.
But there are scooters that go extremely fast. I've never clocked one. And I'm sure you guys haven't hit one with a radar, but they go at exceptional speeds down the avenues and streets.
Those wheels are so small, you start getting the jiggle going on.
You're thinking the little like skateboard size.
Wheels are like this.
Yeah.
I'm saying you spend
Well,
$500
even
bucks.
those.
You spend $500 on one of these scooters. It's going to have a top. It's going to have a 800 watts max speed, 28 miles an hour. I think that we can do the same thing. We can put a max with besides, because we're dealing with bicycles, and it's at a glance. You're going to know whether the kid's on a little 9-mile-an-hour scooter, because when you see these things, one look, they're off-road tires, they're adult size, it's not hard to distinguish between a little kid's scooter and one of these, basically transportation devices.
I feel attacked. No, I don't.
I'm with Tony. I'm just, to say that a kid can't jump on a little razor scooter that'll do 9 miles an hour and ride it around in the neighborhood, just like he can a bicycle. There's something to be said about being just a little too overprotective here. I mean, life is risk. Harry and I both do the same work, so maybe he's got a different attitude about all this, but baloney.
Harry, go ahead.
Can I call the question on the first reading?
Yes. So the question has been called. That will end discussion. There's been a motion and a second. On the first reading of the ordinance pertaining to individuals riding propels, all those various things, 15 years of age and younger. All those in favor of passing the ordinance as submitted and as amended on first reading, signify by raising your right hand. Those opposed? 5-2. Motion. Ordinance passes on first reading. Now, my challenge to you, Tony, is take this time, try to find, working with Chief Powell and with Russ, on how you put that into writing so that it can be, if you want that added in amendment, but also take into consideration, how you're going to try to enforce that and draw that clarity. All right? This is your mission, so should you choose to accept. At this time, I'm going to call a 5-minute recess.
Amen.
Vienna Municipal Code 1075C, the city of Vienna hereby offers for sale the following items, and I've listed, I didn't count them, what was it, 22?
A lot.
A lot. Multiple vehicles, various city-related equipment. Vienna City Council authorizes the finance director to use the internet auction account previously utilized at GovDeals and issue the appropriate notices as required by state code and municipal ordinance. And that's where we're at.
That's it. Do I have a motion to accept the ordinance on first reading of the internet auction?
Yes. Second.
A motion and a second. Open for discussion.
Going once.
I just wanted to just clarify, I know we passed a resolution saying this, why are we now having to do it?
Well, I went back and reviewed the code, and I'm going to suggest, Royal, we're going to do it by ordinance from now on, for the sale of the items.
Great.
Yeah. Well, I love to slow things down. Now, our ordinance says that we need to be conducting the auctions by ordinance, and so that's what we're going to do. Okay.
So this lays out those items that we're going to auction off, so that everybody has in its public knowledge, obviously, for transparency, and that we're voting to approve the auction of those items. I had a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? No other discussion. All those in favor of passing the ordinance on first reading, authorizing for the sale of internet auction of city-owned property, signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is a resolution creating a master plan for the allocation of the capital reserve funds for infrastructure development and projects. Mr. Sculberson.
Resolution creating a master plan for the allocation of capital reserve funds for infrastructure and development projects, whereas the city of Vienna recognizes the necessity of maintaining adequate capital reserves to ensure the long-term stability of public infrastructure and essential services. Whereas the mayor and council find it prudent to allocate portions of the capital reserve fund to priority projects that advance infrastructure improvements, strengthen public safety, and promote community development. Whereas the responsible use of the capital reserve fund supports the city's planning objectives and preserves funds for both immediate needs and future capital obligations. Whereas the mayor and council must work collaboratively toward shared goals, adopting solutions that utilize foresight, fiscal discipline, and strategic planning, all for the benefit of the citizens and taxpayers of the city of Vienna. Now therefore be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that the mayor and council hereby establish a capital reserve master plan to be implemented in accordance with the city's purchasing procedures and applicable state code with the following allocations. 1, infrastructure improvements, 4-year plan, $1.5 million. 2, Spencer's Landing development, $2 million. 3, matching grant reserve, $500,000. 4, 20-year life cycle replacement of engine 1 with the Vienna Volunteer Fire Department, $1.2 million. 5, 12th Street Improvement Project, Grand Central to ITC, $800,000. The Infrastructure Community Development Public Safety Master Plan is based on the following capital reserve totals. The current balance is $10,778,343.12. Allocation set out above as per the capital reserve master plan, $6 million. Remaining balance after allocations to the capital reserve master plan, $4,778,343.12. Remaining balance less capital improvement debt, Jackson Pool, $2,561,573.22. This leaves a projected unencumbered balance of $2,216,769.90. Note the capital improvement debt for the Jackson Pool requires monthly payments of approximately $330,000 with a final payoff projected for 2033.
You've heard the resolution as submitted. Do I have a motion to accept the resolution? I have a motion and a second. I have a motion and a second. Open for discussion.
I have some questions. I think under the note for the capital improvement debt for Jackson Pool, it says requires monthly payments of approximately $330,000. And there's 8 years to pay for that, so I think, should that be like $30,000 or $33,000?
It's $330,000 yearly.
Okay, this says monthly.
It does say monthly. Sorry, that should say annual.
It's an annual.
That's what I think, it was something like that, so. So what is the, line item in the budget for the pool bond debt? I've been sitting here trying to find it, I've looked before, I'm not sure what line item that is, and how that's budgeted on a yearly basis for a monthly payment.
Right off the top of my head, I don't know. I don't have the budget sitting in front of me. But I know she does make that payment monthly.
Okay, I just wanted to see the whole budget for that, but that's okay.
I can have Amy get that to
I'm pretty
you.
sure it's under the pool line item.
Is it under the
Yeah.
building?
I just don't know what the specific,
I've navigated away from it now, so I'm not even gonna try to.
Yeah.
For it. I just had some questions about each of these.
okay?
The infrastructure improvements, a 4-year plan. So 1,000,005 is the total.
Correct.
So that means that over 4 years, that'd be 375,000 a year. right?
Correct.
Okay, so that's what will be budgeted, is 375,000 in the next budget.
So it'll affect this year's budget, it'll go into effect this year, then go over the next 4 years, the next 3 years,
The
including this year.
375 would be the annual budget.
Correct.
Okay. And then Spencer's Landing development, 2 million, and then the matching grant reserve, 500,000. So what exactly is it that we're looking to do for the 200, or for the 2 million? I just want to make sure that we're spending it in a way that's going to be reasonable and logical, and not put the cart before the horse, or, whatever. I just want to make sure that I know, and that we all know, what the plan is for that 2 million versus some of the other plans that were discussed.
So the $2 million would be earmarked that would go towards the Spencer's Landing development. The conversation has been to focus, or that we would focus specifically on the multi-use facility. This isn't necessarily to allocate these funds to any one particular project, but in order to qualify for, or to be able to ask other entities for funds, we have to show that the council has committed basically some skin in the game to say, we know the total of this project is X amount of dollars overall, and that the city of Vienna is willing to commit to it, rather than us just saying, we haven't put up any money of our own, we're just asking for funds. So this $2 million doesn't specifically go towards any one specific project. Those projects would have to come to council, and we collectively as a council would have to decide how, what projects we decided to fund.
Okay, so can we start those projects in this budget year? Say like we wanted to start restrooms. Can we start that this year, this budget year?
And if the council were to approve it,
We have
yes.
to do a budget revision, right?
Well, the process would have to go through, because the $2 million we would be allocating this evening, saying, that's our cap. Then the projects themselves would have to come to council, and we would have to decide on if this was a project we were going to do right now, or we were going to wait. I think the desire is to get started on some of these things as much as we can, where we can, and we can also do that through the budget process just in general. If we want to look, say, at next year's budget and say we really want to get the bathrooms done, we can include that in a budget above and beyond what we would earmark this $2 million for in just a regular budget action. This is really to set money to say, we're putting forth, an effort, and we're making a commitment, so that when we ask outside entities for funds, that it shows that we're putting our interest in it. We can at any given time as a council, come together, keeping in line with the master plan at Spencer's Landing, say, we want to do bathrooms, and we can go ahead and get started on it. There's nothing saying that we can't get started on this stuff at any given time. This just allots really towards the focus of the multi-use facility, when we're trying to encourage other entities to provide us funding to show them that we've made commitment. So that could be, what you're asking could be done really at any given time above and beyond this $2 million.
And I'd like to see council discuss this at some point more, where we actually have a definitive plan as to what we want to do first and second, you know, how we want to go about this. I don't want us to make a decision on one thing, say like next month, and then 2 months from now, we come in and we make a decision on something else, which actually would have been impacted or could be impacted by the first decision we made.
Right.
You know, I think it needs to be a logical progression, and it needs to be well thought out in the scheme of things as far as the construction.
I would completely
and
agree.
how that goes. So I don't want us to just come and say, well, let's do bathrooms. I think we need to have an overall plan in order to decide, you know, do we start on the stage first? Do we start on, you know, the restrooms? Do we start on whatever? You know, I just want to see us not make a mistake by putting the cart before the horse.
By paving roads, then going back and putting in gas line. Right.
Okay,
So I think what you're suggesting is that we put together a stepped phase.
I would like to see that.
Yeah.
A phase process.
Absolutely. And I would support that.
Okay, and then the 20-year life cycle for the fire engine. So that will be funded by a bond, is that right? Or are we gonna finance that? How does that work?
So, and I have Chief Shull here. So we're nearing it'll be 2027 when we hit the actual 20-year mark on the fire engine. To be able to lock in the prices, and this is how it's been done, because this is the way you have to go about the process. You have to allocate all of the funds, because you can't obligate future budgets. So we would allocate $1.2 million, which is the current cost is what it's projected for the new engine. That's in the budget. We're not spending that. We've just pulled that out of capital reserves and sat it over here in this little pot of money. Then when we actually get ready to take ownership of the fire engine, this money is basically released back into capital reserve, and then we take out a loan for the balance, because we'd sell the current fire engine. That would go towards that. Then we would take out a loan for the remaining balance of that fire engine, and this money would then be absorbed right back into the capital reserve.
Okay.
So it's not being spent, it needs to be there over the next 2 years to be able to lock in our price.
Okay.
Think of it as a journal entry. We have the money, the $1.2 million that you have on the books that we, if something went sideways and we had to spend it, the money's there. But for our purposes, it's a journal entry.
We're just encumbering that money.
And we do that because before COVID, you used to be able to get the turnaround on these in what, a year? Yeah. Well, now what's happened is during COVID, we would put in a bid and we wouldn't be able to take delivery on it for 18 months, which means we would be obligating funds in a budget cycle and a half from now, or 2 budget cycles from now. So what we do now is we put a journal entry in that says, whatever happens, happens, but this $1.2 million has to stay until we take delivery of the fire truck. Then once we take delivery of the fire truck, we bid out the financing for the fire truck. We allocate however much the payments are going to be based on whether it's approved, and the $1.2 million is no longer encumbered on the budget.
Okay.
And the intent is that if we do it now, rather than 2 years from now, at the current and what the past rate increases have been on the cost of fire engines, we'll probably save somewhere around the $300,000 mark by locking in our price now rather than waiting for that too. Chief Shull, you had your hand up. That was very nice manners, by the way. Thank you.
Also, the payments for that truck, the truck we have now, we received a year and a half ago, those payments are being paid by the city and then was going to be reimbursed for the county fire fee. The county commission has changed their mind on the rules now, so what we'll do with those payments is turn those directly into the county and they'll make the payments. So these 2 trucks we have now will overlap just a little bit for the larger payment, but at the end of that, the payment won't be made by the city, it'll be made by the county fire fee.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
So technically, we'll have very little in it, maybe just like a year or so overlapping payments, but then the county will be making the payments for us. And like the mayor said, we take the price of what we sell the other truck for, down payment on that. Plus traditionally, the fire department's taking money out of our state funds and put another 100, 150, whatever thousand down on it. So that is the top price of the truck, not top price, that's the expected price of the truck. And, it'll be down from that because of the down payment of the truck or the sale of the truck, plus the fire department giving money for it. So it'll be a little less than that.
Okay,
And
great,
it's
thank you.
free money.
I appreciate it.
To you.
I don't think I have any other
Okay,
questions.
I have a question. The 500,000 matching grant reserve. Is that earmarked similar to the $2 million that you stated that it's let me see what you said. It's kind of focused towards a multi-use facility, but it's not allocated for any particular project. Is you're
Correct.
saying the 500,000?
So the 500,000 would be under the same definition. It puts an earmark on that $500,000 for specific grant match. Now there could be other grants that come up potentially for other projects that we need to have access for a match grant on. That then, if we use a portion of that, council could go back and replenish, that 500,000 if that were to happen. But it just doesn't lock us into one thing. It gives us a little greater flexibility if a grant were to come out for a project. Tony had mentioned, youth facilities or what have you. If there would be a grant that would come up that we could apply for in the way of doing something like that, that would give us access to that. But again, council could go back and replenish at any given time that money that would be grant matched out of that.
So, go ahead. So I'm understanding the $2 million Spencer's Landing development, and then the matching grant of 500,000. Any projects that we have that may utilize that money, council is going to approve.
Yes.
They'll need to approve. What about projects where you will not use this and you decide to do something down there out of the city's funds, but not this money, not these funds?
That's a question that Tammy had asked. Like if you decided to do bathrooms, but just do them in a regular budget the budget cycle, those would all come to council.
Well, every expenditure that you make is going to be every expenditure that the city makes is going to have to be in accord with our purchasing procedures. This is a plan for what to do with the capital reserve. This is just a plan. If you're going to build something out of the regular fund, any project of over $25,000, or is that where we're at? $25,000 is going to have to be approved by council anyway. And in any construction project is going to have to go through the whole procedure and be approved by council. All expenditures over $25,000 have to have council approval. Any expenditures between, I think, where we go, 2,500 to
2,000. Anything 2,000 to
25,000 has to have three prices, and then anything below that is you can buy on the open market. But if your concern is this doesn't obviate our purchasing procedure, this just is a roadmap for what you're going to do with the capital reserve account.
I guess I'm just very cautious and just want to make sure that, I don't want to offend anybody, but lack of a better word, just start nickel and diming this $2.5 million that we have, and then we find out that we do have some money to build a multi-purpose facility, but that money's gone. That's kind of.
So this $2 million is earmarked towards our overall investment in the entire property. This is that's Spencer's Landing. This would not be $2 million then, Tony would come and say, hey, I want to do a $150,000 project out of this $2 million.
Scooter park.
For scooter parks. This is set aside simply as our overall investment that gives us the leverage to be able to ask other entities for money. So this amount of money will never go down until we decide to fund that major project.
And if you notice, it says,
You might call it bait.
It's a big piece of bait.
it says the capital reserve plan to be implemented in accordance with the city's purchasing procedures and applicable state code.
I guess I have a question. So the matching grant, the 500,000, that was part of for Spencer's Landing as well, to get grants for Spencer's Landing, not something else? Because wasn't that part of the 2,500 originally?
2.5,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did I say?
25,
500?
yeah, some.
Yeah.
Yep.
But anyway, I just want to make sure, because you said, so like if Tony wanted a youth center, which I have no problem with the youth center, but that's not part of Spencer's Landing.
So
So then could that grant money that, in my mind, was earmarked as trying to get grants for Spencer's Landing, I think that should be reserved for Spencer's Landing, you know, not necessarily to, sorry, Tony, I love youth centers, but I think it ought to be earmarked for Spencer's Landing, you know, to be able to use that if a grant would come through or whatever.
So the way that it is currently written, unless we do an amendment, is that $2 million is specifically for Spencer's Landing. The other $500,000 could be used for Spencer's Landing, or if there was something that brought itself up and we had to have a grant match for, that would give us funds to be able to do that, taking into consideration that that can be replenished at any given time by council. So, I mean, you could make an amendment earmarking $2.5 million towards Spencer's Landing as a whole, and combining those two.
We're just leaving it as it is as far as the matching grant reserve to earmark that for Spencer's Landing. I mean, keep it as a grant reserve. you
Right.
know,
But you can also,
Spencer's Landing.
you can also use, you've got $2 million, you can also use that as grant. One of the grants that we're currently considering applying for is an art grant, and it's $1 million match. $1 million for $1 million. So and we would obligate $1 million of this $2 million towards that grant match.
So what kind of, I know we can't say right now, we're not even close to, you know, coming up with a plan for phasing in, you know, and doing this in phases. But what is the projected timeline to get started on some kind of development or progress starting on Spencer's Landing? Are we looking at in the springtime we hope to start something? I mean, what is everyone's thoughts on that? Because I'd like to see us get started on it as soon as possible.
So Henry, real quick, the big ticket item out of all of this is that multi-use pavilion style area. That, through various conversations, we're projecting that it's gonna be at least a 2-year mark before any of that could happen. Now, the other projects, the smaller projects, bathrooms, shelters, a walking trail on one side, not the encompass the whole thing, those can all be done in phases along the way at any time that the council were to say, we're gonna start flipping a switch. We had the master plan designed by Thrasher, but at the end of the day, it's this council's decision on when we start and what we start with. Here, before I get to Henry had his hand up and I spoke up.
Yeah, I got a couple comments and questions. First, this is the first time this has been tossed out on the table. Is there a reason this didn't go through budget and finance to discuss first?
Would you like to take that?
You don't have to send everything through budget and finance.
This is why I bring it up.
Yeah.
I'm a numbers guy. Harry met the team of people that we had dinner with one time, and they said, in Henry, we trust when it comes to numbers. When these numbers were put together for the master plan, was a sensitivity analysis done with what-if scenarios. That's basic finance.
So Amy and I sat down and looked at a 20-year record of where our reserve has fluctuated up and down, what our projected costs were, and what what it would take in our reserves to keep us in a safe zone area when funds were obligated. Now, do we know what costs are going to be over the next 10 years?
That's why I'm saying you look at the future, you use the past, you make what-if assumptions. During the budget, I got chastised. I was the only one that voted no on the budget because I said there is a overhead coming towards us. Roughly in the next 4 years, it's $750,000. Then it's going to be almost $1 million coming on. That's going to keep hitting us because it's compounding.
Right.
That's what you look at. You don't look at stuff like this in a rearview mirror. You have your rearview data, and then you do what if. What if this happens? What if this? And you can play in Excel. You create a model. Basic finance. I created one that I used for the budgeting that we can tweak. You got capital spending, you got a fire truck. How much money do you want to spend every year? What's going to be the impact? What's the impact on capital reserves? What's the impact on all kind of other stuff? We put the cart in front of the horse on this one. We are obligated to make sure that we do something smart for the citizens of Vienna. This isn't an experiment. This is money that if we don't do right, we're going to end up like Marietta and have a city fee because council did it wrong. If you don't believe me, get a finance analyst and run the numbers and do some iterations in Excel. You can see the numbers changing in the impact. If you're saying that you guys look at the past and all that stuff, it's not the way you do this stuff. I know that the city of Vienna was in a stone age with software. Everybody's got Excel. Everybody basically knows how to use Excel. You can create a model. We can sit in this meeting for hours. We can create different stuff, do what-if scenarios. You put the stuff in, see what spits out on the numbers. You project it out for the future. If you guys didn't do that, shame on you guys. I purposely did not comment to your email that you sent out because I said, I'm going to wait. I bet you any money we won't have an agenda until Monday. That's when it came out Monday afternoon. I want to do this right. Do we do it? Don't we do it? I'm not here to say that. You got to look at the numbers, and it's the fine-tuning numbers.
So let me say in response. We took a great deal of time in putting this together. It may not have been exactly the way you wanted it to happen.
Well, show me your model.
I'm speaking right now. It may not be the way that you wanted it to happen, but we have never in our history put together any such model, even at this level. What this intent is to do is to give us a projected roadmap of where we're at so that everybody can have a strong reality check on where our funds are. Now, if you want to sit and say, because I look at these expenses, these are things that we have to have. We have to have infrastructure improvement. We have to have, the allocation for our fire truck if we want to do those things. We have to have those things. So the only real question is the $2.5 million when it comes to Spencer's Landing. Now, if you think that's too much, that's your call. This was sent out in advance so that you could have time to do.
And I did. And I didn't do it at a high level. I looked at the macro or the micro based on our budgeting. I got chastised up front. I was the only one that voted no because I was looking at what's coming. You have to have a forward look. It's about the numbers, man. If you don't believe me, get an outside consultant. They'll tell you the same thing, but they'll charge you for it. We should be able to do this in-house. I can show Amy how to go about piecing things together. You can do what-if scenarios. We can spend hours in here everyone can throw a number in, and what if we do this, what if we do that? It takes time to build up. If you have a model, you can use that for budgeting and for the future.
So
You come in and say, I need a new truck, when do we gotta put one in? It's, say for maintenance. You pop it into the spreadsheet, it feeds into your thing, boom, it projects everything out.
Harry?
I think it's important to clarify that we're not spending any money here. We're setting aside money, but no money is being spent. And so this particular motion doesn't cause any money to be spent. Any money that's spent out of that $2.5 million would have to come before council and have to be reviewed and approved. And so we're not spending the money yet. We're just setting a general plan, and with that in mind, I don't have any problem with it.
We're setting a general plan. I asked what's our 4-year plan as a city.
If we don't want to spend it, we don't have to spend it.
I don't.
It has to come before all 7 of us.
Tony?
First of all, I appreciate, this work you guys put into this, you and Ms. Roberts, and getting this. It was actually very eye-opening for me personally to see. Here I'm thinking, wow, we got $10 million. Where can I spend it? But then you see it broke down, and it's eye-opening. So just a quick question: what is the recommended amount that the cities, municipalities should keep in their reserves? I know there's a number out there. Is it 10%? Well, what is that number?
So Rodney looked this up, and it was what, 30%?
It ranges. Typically, you're looking at 30% if you want a AAA rating.
So
and some says it's even lower, like to 25.
So the number that we have leaves a projected unencumbered balance. That would be roughly that.
It's actually 40. Was it 39 or 40%? I sent it in the email. I believe it was 40%.
So we've got a little bit of excess of what's recommended for municipalities and the unencumbered money there. And another question I have, as far as the infrastructure improvements for the 4-year plan, would council have any say in what those infrastructure improvements might be?
So again, those are going to fall in line with all of our regular operating and financial guidelines. Anything like when we allot money for paving, and we allot money for any type of improvement, and you do a contract above that 25,000, those contracts come to city council. So it would not just be, well, we've got now $375,000, we can go spend it on whatever we want. We still have to follow those same procedures. Council can come and make recommendations and say, look, I believe sidewalks along Grand Central need to be fixed in these certain areas, and we address that, and we go down that path, and we do that, and we allot those monies. So I think to answer your question, yes, council will have input and say on how those funds get spent, because we have to follow the same purchasing procedures as anything else.
And just for again, I'm just trying to clarify here. Say we wanted to release all $375,000 into streets. Then once that happened, then that would basically just go into streets, and then however the city, would council have a say in how, like what streets got, part of that funds, or what, I mean, you see what I'm saying? Is it
right? So you did that in essence during when Mr. Metz brought forward. Everybody had an opportunity to say, this is what we want to do that. So when we appropriate this money or earmark it, then we can look at infrastructure needs above and beyond what was budgeted, and council would have the same opportunities to make those suggestions or to give that give that input on where and what we did. It wouldn't be a singular person making an arbitrary decision on what all was going to be done. It would take the same processes that it did before, as Jim just laid out.
Okay. All right, and then, the 2 million, I just wanna make sure I heard this right, the 2 million for the Spencer's Landing development, that would be funds that we could, and I think I heard this, but I just wanna make sure, we could potentially have 2 million that we could use for matching grants specifically for Spencer's Landing. Is that the way I understood that? So if say the $1 million matching grant came out and we did it, we'd still have another million sitting there that we might be able to match with as well.
Above and beyond the 500,000, yes.
But you'd have to vote on each one of them.
Yeah.
You just doesn't spend any of it.
Yeah, but I guess I'm just trying to make sure, because I know that it's worded, and I appreciate the way it's worded. I'm not trying to knock it or nothing, but the Spencer's Landing development, that would be money that you could specifically use for matching grants, even
If
the
you
2 million
need,
at
yes.
Spencer's Landing. But we're just saying, as a council tonight, we're resolving that we want to spend $2 million down at Spencer's Landing. And then we want to have the 500,000 reserved for potentially other projects outside of Spencer's Landing.
Yeah, or its entirety too, just however the council would decide to do it. Because it would be up to the council. If we had a matching, say you brought and said, hey, I've got $150,000 as a matching grant of $150,000, you bring that to council, you say, I'm requesting that it would come out of that 500,000, you would bring it to council would say yes or no.
Okay.
This doesn't give just the approval of anybody, just to say, hey, we got 500,000, yeah, go ahead and do that over there. It would still require the approval of council.
Okay, one more, sorry. One more question real quick. What was I can't remember the multi-use covered facility. What was?
Was that including the stage?
What's that?
8.5, did that include the stage?
That included the stage, the
Did or did not?
restrooms, and the parking area. The actual multi-purpose structure with the concrete underneath is 5.4.
5.4.
Oh, you did?
All right, I'm good.
Trying to find you. Oh, I'm sorry.
So the 2 million for Spencer's Landing and the 500,000 for the matching grant reserve. That was part of what Crasher presented when they were here prior. Wasn't that one of those 2.5 million?
They had one at 1 point, they had 1 million, 1.5 million, 3 to 4 million, 3 to 4 million, and 6 million.
Okay.
They didn't have anything the only thing that they had at 2.5 million was financing.
Oh, okay. So I guess my concern is, when we talked about this, and even you said this a few minutes ago when you said 2.5 million for Spencer's Landing. And this, you said that was for Spencer's Landing, and you may have misspoke. I want to, Spencer's Landing has been on the books for a long time. I haven't been here, Mr. Leach has been here. He's been trying to get this through for what, 8 years? And now we come to a time where we've got some money, and I want that 2.5 million to go to Spencer's Landing. I think that is the priority. I think we need to develop that. I think we need to get some skin in the game, get it on good early. And I think that if we don't start developing this as an economic platform to bring people in, we're going to miss the boat.
So are you making an amendment?
I would like to make an amendment that the 500,000 matching grant reserve be earmarked for Spencer's Landing development.
I'll second that.
So I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'd just say that while I do support Spencer's Landing, the idea of essentially taking all of the city's reserves and putting all of the eggs into one basket when there's other opportunities potentially out there. I'm not really comfortable with that. And I say, you know, we're working on getting a soccer field down at the other end that I would love for the city to potentially throw some money into. I know there's been talk of possibly trying to get a turf field at Jackson Middle School. And I just think of all of the kids that would benefit, you know, from having a turf facility at Jackson that potentially the city could invest funds into. I don't know how much that would be, but I don't like the idea. I'm not saying that maybe it is only, you know, 25 grand that the city has to put up to match to get one of these, you know, turf facilities done. But I'm just not comfortable saying, yeah, I'm all in with everything this city has completely for Spencer's Landing. I'm not comfortable with that.
I think matching funds could be found from other places. I don't think that rules that out. What I see is that Vienna needs economic development. Vienna needs economic growth. We're going to get that by the cultural and the arts type development of Spencer's Landing, where you're drawing people in, you're bringing in money, people that want to relocate here, that have families, they're going to look at this as part of what, you know, the amenities of living in Vienna are. I'm not saying that a turf field is not important or a soccer field is not important, but if I'm a parent and I have kids, I'm going to look at everything as a whole. There's going to be a holistic approach. I don't see a family saying, oh, they've got a turf field, we're going to move here. I see a family saying, they have all these amenities. Look, they have concerts, you know, they have a playground down there, they have 2 kayak launches. That's what's going to bring people here. I'm not diminishing what you're saying at all, but I think the economic development that needs to be done is going to start at Spencer's Landing.
Harry, you had your hand up.
I agree with Tony that leaving 20% available for Spencer, but also available for other things makes sense. Is there any way we can vote on that amendment right now?
We have a motion and a second on the amendment to earmark all $2.5 million towards Spencer's Landing.
Instead of allowing
500,000. The amendment to change matching grant reserve from $500,000 to zero, and to move that to the Spencer's Landing development, making it $2.5 million.
So and now I've got a motion and a second.
Yeah.
So on the 500,000 on the match, you know, when we had, I think it was this meeting, and afterward, you know, we're talking to Tony, to Lindsay, and they both cautioned to say, you want to earmark something for sure that it is available for match. All of it can be used for match. You know, if we can go a mill on the $2 million, obviously any money that we can spend and get a match, that's how we're going to spend that money, right? But earmarking a certain amount guaranteed to be available for match is also a part of that. And the you know, so I'm in favor of doing that. And when we looked at this, you know, I mean, you know, some of these recommendations, you know, it ranged from city cash commitment from 1.5 to 4 million to 6 million, right? 2.5 seems to be a reasonable amount, what we're talking about. You know, and I agree with the approach that the mayor has, is just like with the street plan. I guess this is just on the amendment of 500. So I won't, you know, we can go all night on this, like Henry said. And Henry, I agree, there's an opportunity. If you want to bring some what ifs forward, you know, we can always consider and listen to that. But on the match, that was the purpose of this. That was the recommendation of our grant writers, to say earmark a certain point, and I think it's to so you keep that in mind, and they're not here to speak to it, but I think that's where that's coming from, and that's why I support the amendment for Spencer's Landing 2.5. You know, and again, this is really just, you know, our statement of good faith that we want to move forward to this project. We're not committing to anything.
Henry, did you have
Yeah, the comment that Tammy made with regards to economic development. the funds that we assume are gonna come in ought to be tossed into the what-if model, because our revenue's flat. I mean, we need to put our skin in the game, and what do we think we're gonna bring in?
That's what the economic impact study is.
That's the whole piece of that, but we gotta piece all that information in to understand, because right now we're flat. Tony even said when we did the budget, we gotta find another revenue stream. How much revenue we're gonna get from the economic impact of this? That all gotta be factored in, so we can look at the big picture.
Well,
Let's move on the amendment right at the present time.
And to Mr. Sasson's point in dealing with the amendment, I was just down in Gallipolis, Ohio. I don't know if you guys are familiar. It's not a very big city. It's pretty rural. They have a facility down there. It's 30,000 square foot. Got a chance to talk with the director, and they have 105 teams playing youth basketball that come all the way from Kentucky, travel 100 plus miles to come in to Gallipolis, Ohio. It's called The Roots. You can look it up. It's pretty new. I think it was built in 2020. There is other ways that this city can earn revenue outside of development at Spencer's Landing. And again, I just want to reiterate, I'm all for the development. I think $2 million is a big chunk of money. And I wouldn't even be opposed to saying, maybe something comes up and we've got 2.25 that we want to match at Spencer's Landing or whatever. I just don't like the idea of saying this city, because that's what we are. We are representatives of this city. I don't like the idea of this city putting all of its eggs into one basket.
Go ahead. Say something. Okay, and I appreciate everyone's comment, although I don't agree with some of the comments. I agree with Harry 100% that we are not spending anything yet. And anything we do spend has got to come to council. I don't agree we're not putting our eggs in all one basket. We're just putting 2.5 million, we're allocating that. That is not putting all eggs when you're looking at $10.77 million. What I'm concerned about, and what I'm starting to hear, which has concerns, that we're beating Spencer's Landing up again and we'll end up doing nothing because we have these other little projects we want to do. And I think we should focus on Spencer's Landing. It's been there. The people of Vienna have spoken. They want to see improvements down there. We've had multiple drawings of Spencer's Landing. We had our final drawing on it. Everyone agreed here on council. Agreed to the concept, the drawing. We're the closest we've ever been in trying to get some development going on down there. I just don't want the next big shiny object, all of a sudden we start not focusing on Spencer's Landing. We need to focus on Spencer's Landing, and all we're asking, I think Tammy's asking, is just to earmark at $500,000 to Spencer's Landing projects. Again, council is going to make a decision when these things become a reality. When actually the money, it comes in and we got to figure out, okay, how much are we going to use, and we're going to agree to start building the structure. That will happen then, and that's when the money gets allocated.
So do we have a discussion on the amendment? You calling the question? Yes. Okay, so the question has been called. There's an amendment to make the changes and dedicate $2.5 million towards Spencer's Landing. All those in favor of making the change from $2 million to $2.5 million in removing the line item or the number 3-point matching grant reserve of $500,000. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Opposed? The amendment fails.
Can I call a question on the motion?
So the question has been called now on the overall resolution for the master plan. There's been a motion. There's been a motion and a second. There's been discussion, and the question has now been called. All those in favor of passing on first reading the resolution on the master plan for Spencer's Landing, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed? 6-1.
I'm gonna send you one with the corrected, requires annual payments totaling $330,000.
That's a good catch.
Thanks.
We would be making $330,000 a month, right?
Well, we're not obligated to do that.
Yeah.
We're not
That was
obligated to do that.
542,
Yeah.
19 was
Five
one,
forty-two,
rents.
19. Thank you.
Rents is, yeah.
All right, that concludes that portion of our agenda. Now moving into reports, standing boards and committees. Does anybody have anything they'd like to report?
May I excuse myself now? Can you guys go with these 6 hours?
Yeah, you can go.
My wife has a chance for his birthday dinner with our daughter, and we're gonna be going next week, and it's supposed to be tonight, and she said for 8 o'clock, just knowing we would be done.
Is it somewhere we want to go?
You come on down to Huffman's.
All right.
Let's go crash it.
Let's go, guys. All right, we'll see you there in a little bit.
She asked me what I wanted, and I said, whatever you get, dear.
You may be excused. There's no other business at hand. Tony, go ahead.
I don't know how well it's going to show up, but I just wanted to, if you hadn't made it down to the park, the rink has been installed. They've got most of the nets up. They had to order some nets. They've got a little bit of squaring up to do, got some anchoring to do, but it's there, and it's there. It looks great, and I've asked Mr. Slusher to document the whole thing. So they've been taking pictures, and I'm hoping once they've got it fully constructed and all done, they'll take a nice group picture of all the people. We've talked about trying to get some kind of a plaque to kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Dedicate.
Commemorate, dedicate, yeah. Everybody that was involved in installing it and stuff. But I'm also interested in once we get everything done, I'd like to get some kind of a photo album put together of the whole thing. Just getting it all down here. They've got it all pretty well documented, and then throwing it into the city building upstairs. So anyways, just wanted to show you guys that.
Do you think Pope Gas will be interested in the Navy room?
It is quite the spectacle. It's a lot bigger than what I thought that it was going to be, but I was down there the other day and I had kids asking me, when can we start using this? And I said, it's not finished yet.
Yeah. Well, I wish I had a list of all the names of the people who have been volunteering their time to get it set up, and it was a small army of people, but hats off to them. It looks great, and it's going to be a great addition to the city.
The Tree and Beautification Committee met last Tuesday, and we're still working on the pollinator garden. It has not been finalized. We're looking to put a fence along the southern side to put up, so that will, I think the bids are out on that to try to get that put up. So it's still being improved. And as much as people likes it, I think they'll like it even more.
How much milk would you put in that?
Pardon?
How much milk would you put in?
There's a milkweed bush that was put in. We had monarch caterpillars there, and we had to rescue some of them because some of the bushes were completely defoliated. I guess that's the word. We had to move them, but it's working, and the plants are just beautiful. That the fires.
Can we cut down our rain garden across the street yet? I've been waiting on your okay to be able to do that.
We probably should get tree and beautification ladies that put some nice looking flowers.
Something.
Yes, that milkweed bomb.
Okay, that's it. Anyone else? Tammy, anything with the senior center? It's bursting at the seams, by the way. It's doing really well. Anyone else? Any other council comments?
I just got one, and as a council, we agreed to the concept. Big question was financing. and nobody hit the Powerball. So I want everybody to understand that we agreed to the concept. We gotta do the detail work on stuff.
And I think that was the overall intent of this.
The numbers came out, and then you could have brought it up, and we could have started saying, well, what about this, what about that, and start looking at piecing the model together. Ronnie says he doesn't wanna have a November 14th budget and finance meeting. That's why I didn't respond to you, because this is the type of stuff that we ought to be working on during budget finance as a group, piecing things together to bring to council, so we got a model. Because right now, we don't have nothing, except for what I pieced together. And unless you wanna go upstairs and you have something on a computer that lets you project and look out in the future, which I doubt.
Anyway, anybody else got any other comments? Nope. This meeting stands adjourned.
Oh, it's not small. It's small.